Here we are, glorious summer, short season. Y'all, I have made videos telling women to wear the shorts, and then a few short weeks ago, I stood in front of my own mirror and I nearly refused to wear mine. I want to talk about something today that no one really likes to talk about because it's a little uncomfortable. It's the grief that comes with your body changing and the story around how I've handled that personally myself recently. Now, I don't mean the big dramatic stuff. I'm not talking about a diagnosis or a surgery or a major life event, not those kind of changes. You know, we all have to navigate those as they come up. I'm talking about the smaller, the normal days where you just notice, that things have shifted. And sometimes it's not what your body can do or not do. Sometimes it's simply looking in the mirror and realizing that something no longer looks quite the way you remember it. Something that used to feel familiar or reliable, it suddenly isn't anymore. And when I feel the anxiety of showing a part of my body that I don't regularly show, I don't always know what to do with that feeling because the story that I've been handed my whole life, I don't know about y'all, was pretty limited. We basically have two options when it comes to aging. You can fight it, you can stay ahead of it. You have to buy the thing or do the thing, or at all costs, don't let yourself go. You should act like it's a war and you can win it, if you just try hard enough. Or you can celebrate it and embrace, change with open arms and tell everyone how free you are and that age is just a number and you've never felt better. And, I'm not saying that either of those is completely wrong. And I think it's obvious which side I lean towards. But neither one leaves much room for the super messy middle part, for the reality that some days it's both of those things, and then some days it's neither. And some days it's something that you genuinely just do not have a clean word for, and it's just uncomfortable. Nobody hands you some script for just grieving something like this, for sitting with the realization that your body doesn't work quite the way it once did, or that it doesn't look quite the way you remember. That some assumption that you held about yourself, something you never even thought to question, is quietly no longer true. A few weeks ago, my twin 7-year-old grandsons had their end of baseball picnic, and we were going, and it was a beautiful 75-degree Saturday. We were going to be outside in the open, for several hours. And I pulled out the 4 pair of shorts that I own, and I started trying them on. And I've gained a bit of weight since I wore them late last summer. And as expected, they were not super comfortable. But that wasn't really the problem. The problem was what I felt in those try-on moments when I looked at my reflection in the mirror, and it was the way my legs and my skin looked in the shorts. Not to mention that my legs were coming out of a rather rainy Seattle winter spring and hadn't seen any sun. I think what caught me off guard was that my legs just didn't look like the legs that I remembered from even a year ago. And I wasn't only criticizing the cellulite and the crepey skin. I think the part that, I was grieving was just putting on shorts, just like pulling on jeans. There wasn't a whole internal conversation around it. And I didn't have to stand there wondering whether I was willing to be seen. I have 2 other videos where I specifically mention wearing the shorts and the tank top for that matter. And one of those videos was about things that I would tell my younger self. I have literally spoken on camera about things that I wish I had not done for the first half of my life. And yet when I looked in the mirror, there were all the feelings. Knowing better did not mean that I suddenly felt better. And I almost didn't wear the shorts and opted for jeans, but thankfully I did wear them. I tried not to think about it, and I focused instead on the kids and on the moments around me, and it turned out to be a lovely day. No one cared about my legs. No one cared about my legs. But the truth is I cared, and that was the part that I didn't want to admit. I didn't want to spend that beautiful afternoon policing my own body. I didn't want to sit there thinking about my thighs when I could be watching my grandkids and enjoying the day. And, you know, this wasn't catastrophic, but it was uncomfortable. And honestly, it ticked me off that I felt that way. I try so hard to focus on the important parts of life and to be grateful for my body's capabilities, which I am. I do know what is most important about me has nothing to do with my appearance. My crepey skin on my thighs, or the cellulite, or the fact that my legs are pale after my Seattle spring, well, they just don't matter in any meaningful way. And yet I still felt something, you know. I think sometimes we tell ourselves that because something isn't important, that we shouldn't feel anything about it, you know, that we should be able to reason our way out of it, and we should know better by now. But feelings don't always work that way. You know, this type of grief, it doesn't mean that you're not grateful or that you've forgotten how lucky you are to still be here, still moving through the world. You know, it doesn't mean that you're vain or that you failed at accepting yourself. It just means that you're human. You're allowed to feel the loss of your former self and, you know, the gratitude at the same time. Those two things aren't fighting each other. You know, they're just both true. You know, I think a lot about this. Adapting to your changing body is not evidence that you are becoming less. You are not giving up if you have cellulite or pale skin and you show your legs. Aging skin, you know, you're not in competition with anyone, and you especially do not need to be in competition with a younger version of yourself. That younger version of you had a younger body. That doesn't mean she had a better body. A changing body is not a lesser body. I really want that to land solidly, because I think we constantly absorb so much messaging, and it tells us the exact opposite. It tells us that every change is a step down from something better, that every new line or softening or change in our weight or our skin, you know, it means we've lost something important, and it's just not true. Our bodies and our needs change. The way we move through the world changes. And the things that feel comfortable may change. Sometimes we may buy something different clothes that we once wore may no longer, you know, feel like us anymore. Maybe we need more support. And sometimes we put on the shorts anyway. None of that means we are becoming less. Our bodies still carry us, and they keep showing up every single day and doing the thing for us. You know, they might take us to the baseball picnic or sit in the sun and walk across the field or laugh and talk and eat and just be part of the day. They're worthy of gratitude, even on days when they frustrate us or when we look in the mirror and we feel something that we wish we didn't feel. You know, even when we're grieving something that we didn't expect to lose. You don't have to fight every change, and you don't have to feel joy about every change either. Sometimes you're simply not happy about it, you know. You may know it's a normal part of getting older and still need a little time to get used to what you see in the mirror. The grief and the gratitude can share the same exact space. That's not a contradiction. That's just part of getting to live long enough to see your body change. It's a privilege. And I think the more that we say that out loud, I think the less alone that we'll all feel in it. And I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts here. Like, do you wear the shorts? Is there a change in your body that caught you emotionally off guard, even though logically you knew bodies change, or something you slowly had to learn to make peace with? I'll be down there reading in the comments. Thanks for watching and for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.